Welcome back to my YouTube channel, all of you gluttons for punishment, aka Microsoft Access developers. For those of you that don't already know me, my name is Daniel Pinault, and I'm a longtime Microsoft Access MVP. Today, actually, it was something a little bit earlier in the week that I decided I wanted to play around with, see how feasible it was to implement. Look also at the quality of what the implementation actually gave as an end result. But I wanted to look at, can we make Access recognize the user dictation? Like, you can buy all sorts of software, like Dragon Naturally Speaking is one that comes to mind. I know my neighbor had that. It was a big thing back in probably like the 90s. And I was just curious, can we do something similar in Access? I had explored a little bit the SAPI for getting Access to talk back to me, and it could basically tell me anything I wanted in the database. Have a whole article and a video on that, and it worked really well. But could we do the inverse? Could we talk to Access instead of typing? And well, as luck has it, there is a way, and it's actually using SAPI library again. Just something I had never explored and wasn't even aware of. It took a little bit of digging, but Microsoft already has the code already for us. Let me just show you here. If you go and check out the VBA, you go in the documentation, they have a very basic sample. And that's what I wanted to explore briefly with you today. So let's dive in and see how easy or hard it is to get Access to recognize us talking to it. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to start this guy off from scratch 100%. We're going to create a new database. Okay, dictation recognition, that's all glorious. Now, so we have something to work with. I'm not going to start designing things. That isn't the point of today's video. So I'm just going to import application parts. I'm going to go get the contacts. And I'm going to do away with all sorts of garbage that we don't need for what we're doing today. So let's just kill all of this. So basically what we have is a table and we have a form. Now I want to be able to talk to this form to do the data entry. Like I said, I'm lucky enough here that we have code. So let's just copy this guy. Whether it follows our naming conventions and all of that is inconsequential for today's discussion. Let's just get something functional. We can always soup up naming convention of variables and things like that very easily. It really doesn't require much work. So we copy this. We're going to come into design view. It doesn't make a difference. Just pick an event and let's paste in what they've given us. Now, right off the bat, okay, let's do a debug to compile it, and lo and behold, and no surprise to us, is it's going to say here that there's problems, because it doesn't know what the heck iSpeech grammar is. I know the answer to this problem, but if you look here in the text, it tells you that you need to select a reference to Microsoft Speech Object Library. So if we come in here, we go into Tools, Reference, we jump down to M for Microsoft, and we just scroll a little bit, we'll eventually come upon the Speech Object Library. Now you'll see here there's SAPI, and there's SAPI 1, I can't even see what it is, 1 core. In my testing, we wanted the SAPI, just the regular, so in my case, the first one that appears. Now if we do debug, it appears to work. So we're glorious. We should be ready to roll. So let's give this a whirl. Let's see what happens when we start up our form, because this is all part of the form load event. And you'll see here, the first time it runs, there's this whole thing with speech recognition. So you have to determine what you're doing. Are you using a headset, desktop? So you have to do a bit of initial setup. This is normal. Then there is this initial setup where it's going to make you do a couple things, okay? So this is all normal. It's just the initial setups, and it listens and understands your voice better. It knows what type of microphone you're using, etc., etc., etc. You just have to jump through these hoops the first time only. And as you can see, it's calibrating things. So read the sentence, Peter dictates to his computer. He prefers it to typing and particularly prefers it to pen and paper. And there we go. That's how hard it was. Let's say I'm going to stick with manual, and there we go. We don't need it running at startup. Skip tutorial. Okay. So now that we've done that, let's close this again. Let's just do it from the start. So it's been set up. So now you're going to see this doesn't happen every time. So we're just going to open our form at load. You see it automatically went and it initiated the voice recognition. So if I come here now on anyone and I press the button to record to listen to me, Daniel. Okay. Now that's glorious, but nothing happened, right? Why not? Well, we have to go back to our code to answer that question. We're here in this code, we're using the with events on the shared reco context, which is why you now have these procedures here that are linked. They're actually events for the recognition software. And the one that we want is the actual recognition. Now, if you look at it, RC is the name of our variable, okay? And that's why you have RC when it makes a recognition, when it captures an entry, a voice dictation. So this is the event that captures when the user actually speaks. And as you can see right now, this is all commented out. They just gave an example of what we could do. Now, for the first example, let's just do first name, and we can go and get this. And what this is it goes and gets exactly what the person just dictated. Okay, go get the text from the result of the recognition. And we're going to pass it to the first name. So we're going to save that. Typically, we should always debug, make sure it's all healthy and good. Now we can go back to our form. Let's open it up. Now let's try this again. So we're on the first name, Daniel. And there you go. As you can see, as long as I'm talking, it keeps getting inputted. And as you can see, the results, well, they can be hit or miss. To make this all stop, as you can see, is you have to remember you have to deactivate this control. So you have to press the button to activate it, and you have to press the button to deactivate it. The other thing is, now I come into title, job title, I activate it, programmer, and once again it went in the first name, and that isn't the desired effect I'm going after, at least as a developer, as a trying to implement this on a form, right? So what's the solution? There's a couple things we have to look at here to try to make this a little bit more digestible by the user, because currently going up and clicking, enumerating, dictating, pressing the button again to stop it, I'm not going to get my users to get on board with that. That's just ludicrous, okay? You're going to do that for every control. It's not going to happen. Let's be serious. That's just too much work, and it isn't saving anyone from using the keyboard. Now it's all mouse driven, click, click, anyway. So we have to address a couple things. Okay, the first thing I want to address before diving into the activation of the control, because that's a little bit more complex, but I have a solution for that, is I want to be able to go from control to control without having to hard code it. Now, there are different ways of going about this, obviously, but the way I found that seems to work quite reliably is just simply going on and saying screen, active control value, and now we can come in and put in the, okay, so now it's just going to push the dictation, the text from the dictation, to whatever control we're actively on. So let's look at how that works. Debug control, okay. So now let's see how this works. Now if I'm on job title, programmer, access rocks. So as you can see, now we have a function that simply recognizes where the cursor is, and that's where the dictated text will go. So this makes it a lot more manageable. I'm almost happy, but I'm still not 100% happy because this coming up here to click and click is tedious, and my users won't get on board with that, and it's just too much work. So how do we go about improving this and eliminating this need? Well, this is a little bit trickier. Well, what I've come to find is that you can activate and deactivate, so toggle the dictation, this voice recognition, by using the Windows key and Control. So Control and Windows key. So you see my cursor isn't moving here. So then I said to myself, okay, I reluctantly said to myself, okay, well, maybe we can look at using send keys. I'm not a send keys person. Anyway, they can be very dangerous. And I looked into it, but there's a problem. There is no send key for the window key. Another limitation of send keys. So then I digging, and I remembered I've done some old projects. Like I say, I don't use send key. I've always replaced it. And we're lucky. There's an API. So I went to a Windows API to solve my problem. And there's an API for the keyboard event. So let's close this for a second. Let's throw in the code. That's fine. Let's throw in the code. So I'm going to create a module. Obviously, you can name it whatever you like, but keyboard makes sense to me. And I'm just going to paste the code. And basically, all of these constants are representing different keys on the keyboard. Pretty obvious, right? Numpad, up, left arrows, things like that, clear, cancel. And like you see here, you have the control button. And here is the actual API we're interested in. So for 64-bit, 32-bit, the declarations are there. It's really straightforward. There's a link here I'll provide. And by looking at the actual, well, here, let's look at it quickly. Let's open up this page. The keyboard event, and here you go. It breaks it down for you. You can look at this. You can also get the constants themselves, like I have in the code sample here. This was taken from a sample Microsoft has. This is nothing that I've invented. This is well-known stuff. And what wasn't well-known, and I had to go digging for, is there was, once again, no Windows key. Luckily enough, doing some digging, I did eventually find the Windows key. So with that, now I have the Windows, and above I have the Control. I am now able to do what I needed to do, or at least I hope so. So now I was prepared. I have the API. I have all my constants. I'm good to go. So now I wanted to add, for instance, a way for the user to activate, deactivate without always having to go to the top of the screen. So I wanted them to be able to do it from wherever the heck they were in the form. So let's take the first name, for instance. Now, I didn't want to use the got focus necessarily because I didn't want it to automatically engage, which can always be a possibility. You could check, is that control empty, null? And if it is, then activate it automatically. There's different ways of going about this. A single click didn't make sense to me either, but I said to myself, a double click could work for this. So then knowing the code, I was able to then come up with doing something like the following. And if we uncomment it, oops. So I came up with doing this. So what is this? Why are there four? I have two keystrokes, right? Control and Windows. Why do I have four events happening? Because you've got to do pressing the key, and then you've got to do releasing the key up. That's why every keystroke actually takes two keyboard events. So with that done, and once again compiling, make sure everything's good, Now, when the user double clicks, it should activate it, and it should deactivate it. But I didn't want to get into having to go to every control and create this double click event. That's ludicrous. Furthermore, I didn't want to get into this whole bit of having to create 4 entries for every event of this nature. So the first next step I took is I decided to create a subroutine to do keystrokes. Okay, so we have to come back to the mod here at the keyboard, and what I came up with for my needs for here, just typing, is I came up with this guy here. And basically what it does, I can pass it an array of keystrokes. So I can do one keystroke or multiple keystrokes. And what it does is it iterates through the keystrokes that I'm supplying it to press down the key. And then it iterates through them to lift up, release the key. So exactly what I had before. And as you can see here, I had a couple examples of how it works. So now I have a single line that I can call instead of having to do 4 lines. So now I can replace what I have there with just this. Okay, so we'll comment that out, make sure it compiles, everything's happy, and just to prove it once again, I can come here, double click, John. Okay, so I'm able now to double click event, a simple double click event, and it works beautifully. But I don't want to have to do this for every single event. So what made more sense to me was to then make a routine that I could simply call. So what I ended up doing, which was make a public sub, what am I doing? Toggle recording, in which now we simply grab this guy here. Okay. Obviously we should add error handling and all that, but that's all we need now. And we can do mod speech recognition. And now what we can do is we're able to simplify our double click event completely and do a, call toggle recording. Yes, debug it. There we go, compile. And now if we close, yes, reopen it just for clarity, come here, Dwayne. And as you can see, all we have to do is double click on the control and I'm able to stop and start the dictation, the speech recognition at will, over and over and over. So we're almost there, but we're still not 100% there, because right now we would have to create an event for every single form control that we want to have this ability on, right? So we come here. So right now I have an event here, double click. If I want to do it on the last name, I'd have to come do the same, right? And you'd have to do this over and over and over and over. It's going to complexify the code here for no reason. It's just a lot of work for nothing, and I don't like it. So I said to myself, once again, there has to be a better way. And there is. Luckily for us, we can use code to our advantage here. So what is the solution? Well, one way, or the approach I took, is I took the onOpen event. And here I'm going to replace all of these via code. So what am I going to do? Well, first I'm going to create a variable for a control as access.control. And then I'm going to do something like a for each control in me controls. Next, control. Now, you have to decide which controls you want to be able to dictate to. Obviously, you're not going to dictate to a subcontrol. You're not going to dictate to a command button, things like that. So just to keep it simple for today, but this is something obviously you can easily expand on. What I'm going to do is I'll just check for text boxes. If control type equals AC text box, so we're looking for text boxes, only text boxes, we can do an end if. Then what we're going to do is we're going to assign the controls on double click, and we're going to make it equal. And then what are we going to make it equal? We're going to make it equal this function. So equals, there we go, and we're all happy now. We can decompile, everything's glorious. We'll come down here now, close it down, come here, and double click. Oh, what just happened here? Now I've made a mistake on purpose to point this out to you. Why is this occurring? Well, let's go back to our code for 2 seconds. If we come to the speech recognition, I created a public subroutine. Sadly, invoking, here we go, as an event. So regardless of the event, which one we use, on, click on, go focus, all of these things, what you put here, if you're calling a routine, has to be a function, okay? So to solve this, we just have to change our sub to a public function. Now, we didn't change anything else. We'll do a compile again for safety, save it, reopen the form. Now we should be good to go. Julie. President. Access rocks. And there you have it. We now have a form or code that we can implement in any form very easily that now allows us to toggle on and off speech recognition. It allows us to automatically recognize the control we're in, and I think possibly provide a much easier way for doing certain data entry. We're also now providing means to make access even more accessible to people that may have certain disabilities. So now typing is something that you can bake into Access and other applications. Let's not kid ourselves, this isn't limited just to Access. That can perhaps make Access and other applications more attainable for certain users that previously would have found it impossible. So we can eliminate the keyboard possibly from doing certain data entry. This is great sometimes for dictating notes, amongst other things. Certain things it doesn't truly speed up entry, let's not kid ourselves, but for certain other aspects, it can truly be a beneficial thing to integrate into your database. And it all starts off, like I say, with just some very basic code. Okay, the heart of everything here is this right here. Okay. The stream, we're not getting into that today. It really isn't important for what we're trying to achieve. And error message, well, you implement the error handling. Like I said, this is all basic. We can vamp it up and use our traditional naming conventions, our traditional best practices and things like that. This wouldn't be the error handler of my choosing. But it was just to quickly get us up to speed, get us something functional, which I did. And from there, we take it up a notch by adding keyboard event toggle, and we use a reusable function. Remember, it has to be a function, not a subroutine. And now you're able to implement this in any form. This is all you need. Okay, and we could take this even further by creating a class, a form class that we then just use once, and it could do all of this for us. So you can push this even further, but I really hope this has been informative and something that possibly you haven't seen before with Access. I know I have never seen this implemented in Access before. I'm going to stop there. I'm just rambling on now at this point. We have the solution to our problem. No, currently I do not have an article on this. It will be coming in the coming days, I promise. But like I said, I will provide a link to this guy where you basically have the code to at least get you started. In the coming days, I will provide the rest of the code for the keyboard especially. It is available online, well, the bulk of it at least, and this isn't very hard to replicate should you wish to. All the code is visible on the screen, but I will get out an article where you can do some copy pasting in the coming days. As always, thank you for being here and watching my videos and supporting me. It is greatly appreciated, and I will see you in the next one, guys. Take care. Have a great day.